all the pearls on the market today are actually cultured pearls? Yeah, that's right. Natural pearls are extremely rare. So if you have one, your grandmother said that she got one from way, way back, give me a call. Discover the value of your story. Increase. So this award lets me know that good morning. Bonjour. Comment ça va? Et toi? Il neige, it's snowing, but ça va très bien. Niha, hola, bienvenue, Wan Ying, bienvenidos, bienvenita, namaste, and welcome. Welcome to another exciting episode of Gem Hunter Stories. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemmological storyteller. In each week, what I do is I take the art, science, history, and magic of gemstones, precious metals, and fine jewelry, and put them all together into a story. What I've discovered over the years, and what I discover each and every week something new, is that many of the same concepts, the same attributes, the same traits that we so highly praise in gemstones and precious metals for thousands of years, those same characteristics can be found in us, in you. So the purpose, the mission of this story, of this show, is to take those gem stories and use them as a template, as an inception point, a seed, as a bridge to help people, to empower people, to remind people to take time to discover the value of their own stories, of who they are, of how they resonate with the light. Thank you, Barbara. And again, thank you. Good morning to everybody who is snowing here in the United States. It's actually snowing in France. It's actually colder in France than it is in Chicago. So I'm kind of to all my French friends and family. Ha ha. Anyhow, and thank you for being here today. We're going to continue on with the concept that we talked about last week. Last week, we were talking about the title of the episode was What Dreams May Come. And I told you that part of that came from this movie that Robin Williams did in 1980, 1989. What Dreams May Come. Beautiful story. And in that movie, what he was talking about was the whole concept of dreams, of dreams. This is the beginning of the new year. This is now the 10th day of the new year. And what are you doing? People are always thinking to themselves, what do I do now? How do I proceed in those dreams? How do I move forward? I'm wherever I'm at. Sometimes people are happy. We have a lot of mental illness going on. A lot of people are looking at their lives, whether financial, the business, or personal life, and saying to themselves, how do I move forward in my dreams? In Hamlet's soliloquy, he asks us the question, to be or not to be. That is the question. And last week we flipped it to be or not to be, which of course is a whole thing about suicide. And let's make it more empowering. Let's ask the question, to live or not to live. That is the question. That is also the question. Now, all of us have to ask that question. I'm 63 years old, and it's when I watch television and I see all these commercials about all the different medications that I should be on, or so many people my age are on, or we just lost an actor just yesterday, we lost an actor, 42 years old, 42. Brilliant man, handsome, talented, gone, 42 years old. So to live or not to live? That is the question. And as I told you, part of my business, the Gem Hunter, Gemmological Appraisals and Storytelling Services, art, science, history, magic. What we do on this show is to take those concepts of jewelry and art and science and the history of gemstones and precious metals and the metaphysical, the magic of it, and show you how that relates to you in your everyday life, how you can use that in your life to change the world that you live in. This is a tourmaline. This is tourmaline. When you look at gemstones, each type of gemstone has its own metaphysical properties. And we talked about this. This show's been going on for 3 years now, and there's an endless supply. There's endless characteristics. Here is a book on just the metaphysics of different gemstones. Look how thick this book is. Here's another book on just the gemmological characteristics of gemstones. That someone like myself, a gemologist, goes to a school, an excellent school like the International School of Gemmology, shameless plug, and Robert James, and you learn how to look at gemstones, how to see what their characteristics are, how are they made, how are they fashioned, how do you maximize their light performance. And we learn that. But I think that in gemology, when we're studying that, there's something so much more. There's something so much more that we can get out of that, not only what these gemstones are on a gemmological aspect, but what these gemstones are and what they mean to us on a metaphysical level. Each one of these gemstones has a purpose, has a reason for being. And we believe it. We believe the story. We believe the story. No baby just wakes up or is born, and once the baby becomes conscious of different things, no baby just says, "Oh, I like that these are not only pearls, but these are jade pearls. These are jade pearls." No baby, other than being pretty and nice and mommy, this is fun, no baby would understand the value of it until that child grows up and becomes a teenager or an adult and understands the story behind it. The story behind those pearls, those different gemstones. That's what we believe. And once we believe that, once we understand that story, then we begin to understand the value of it. If someone brought you, we talked about the 4 C's: carat, color, clarity, and cut. If someone brought you home, your significant other, your boyfriend, your girlfriend brought you home a 2 carat rock, it wouldn't have the same value. Even if we cut it and fashion it, it still wouldn't have the same value. Why? Because the story is different. The story is different. You can go down the street and get granite. You walk. Some of you got granite kitchens. Okay, your whole kitchen countertop is granite. But it doesn't, because that story is not a story that you believe in. It's not a story that empowers you. That story doesn't have value to you. So, like last week, we were talking about Tanzanite. Those of you born in December, okay, those of you whose horoscope is in the month of December, Tanzanite is your gemstone. And so this is Tanzanite. So when we look at what Tanzanite is, that is a variation of zolcite, that where it comes from the foothills of Mount Kilimanjaro, the highest mountain in Africa, the roof of Africa, 585 million years old. And the thing about Tanzanite is, I told you, it's trichronic, meaning that depending on the angle that you look at it, it has different colors, 3 different colors: blue, violet, and a burgundy color. Very rare. Not a lot of gemstones are tricolor. So if you just looked at it and just saw the beautiful violet, creamy blue color, you're only catching part of that. But the key thing, I told you, that's not the reason why you go into the store. That's not the reason why you bought it. That your boyfriend, your girlfriend did not buy that stone because of these characteristics. They bought that stone because somewhere they heard that this stone, this beautiful, breathtakingly beautiful stone, is a stone that causes the integration of the heart and mind. Guys, if you're giving your girlfriend, your wife, your daughter this beautiful gemstone, you're not going to tell them, honey, this stone is 585 million years old. Happy birthday. What are you saying? What are you saying? I mean, she would look at it and go, that's nice, but did you have to remind me of how old this is? And what are you trying to say? I mean, it goes this way. But if you told that same person, honey, I bought you this because I love the way your mind works. I love the way how you love and how you care, the caring nature, the way you care for me. This gemstone represents the integration between the heart and your mind. Oh, it's going to be a whole different understanding of what that diamond, that Tanzanite earring or a ring or earring or necklace means to that person, because you told that person a story, and that person, because of the beauty of that story, they're going to believe it. They're going to believe it because of the way you said it, the way you presented it to them. You told them this story. So therefore, this story now has value. This ring, go home. Some of you know you got pieces of jewelry sitting in a box, or you're wearing it, or that you, when you talk about it, you go, this is my grandmother's. This is the ring, my watch, my father gave me. Something along those lines. You believe in the story. You believe in the story. And it's the belief that gets you to where gemstones are. And that same power, that same belief, you can use in your everyday life. You can use in your everyday life. And I'm going to show you that today. That the value, the same value that you put on a gemstone, you can put on yourself. You can put on yourself. You can put on the things and the people around you, no matter how old you are. This episode is for everybody. Whether you own gemstones or not, you're going to understand the relationship between the way we look at a gemstone and the way we look at ourselves. Value. Remember what in last week we talked about, and I talk about it all the time, as a man thinketh. Remember that part? Remember that part? In the very beginning, very soon, so altered has his mind become that the workshop can no longer hold him. What does that mean? What does that mean? On a deeper level, what does that mean? That means that person that man, that woman, that child has told themselves a story so much, with so much passion, with so much belief, with so much conviction, that now the things around them is changing because of what they manifested in their minds. Yes, so take a second to think about that. They manifested. The workshop could no longer hold him or her. Why? Because it's out of harmony with who they are. Notice nowhere in there does somebody get the homeboy hookup. Nobody in there got a special gift. Nobody, I didn't say, well, very soon, as soon as he gets the money from the one he won the lottery. No. That person won the lottery because that person in their mind said, one of these days, I'm going to win the lottery. One of these days, I'm going to graduate from nursing school. One of these days, I'm going to have my own business. And once, even though they didn't have money, you know, there's all kinds of stories of people all over the world who had absolutely nothing, who came to this country with $2 in their pocket, and now they're multimillionaires. To the person, you know, Jeff Bezos, who built a whole career in his garage, built a super empire in his garage. That's what they're talking about. So let's say we took that story, if we created that story within ourselves and told ourselves that story over and over and over and over and over and over again, to the point where we believe. To the point where we believe. And this is where you start getting into the differences, the real major difference between gemstones and people. One of the few differences between, other than the fact that one is living, one is not living. One is organic, one is inorganic, except pearls. Or at least pearls come from comes from an organic substance. Same thing with amber. And I told you from the very beginning that there are three characteristics. There are three characteristics that has to happen. A gemstone has to have has to have in order to be considered a gemstone. It has to have rarity. Excuse me. It has to have beauty, and it has to have durability. It has to have rarity, beauty, and durability. And desirability as well. But those are these are the three concepts that a gemstone has to have. And the only difference, the problem that we have rarity. There's only one of you. There's only one of you. You may be black, you may be white, you may be Hispanic, you may be a male. There's 4 billion women on the planet, and there's 4 billion men on the planet. It's not completely even, but you know what I'm saying. It's either, you're either male or you're female, period. Okay, we're not getting into the whole whatever. Whatever side you choose, whatever side you feel that's inside of you, that's who you are. But the only thing that none of us have is durability. Not for as long as a gemstone exists. That tanzanite existed for 585 million years. I'm 63. I can't even think about that. That's not even what is possible in my life. Maybe, I like to live to 88, but that's me. If I get a little more time, but I know that I'm not going to live 1,000 years. I'm not going to live 120 years for the most part. So we don't have the durability that a gemstone has, which means we don't have time. We don't have time. We know, especially nowadays, wherever you live, you know that time. I mean, you could be walking down the street and today is your last day. Driving a car, whatever. We all know some of us are going through that with our mothers, our fathers and stuff, where we know that their time is coming to an end. And that's the difference between. So no matter how beautiful you may be, no matter how rare and unique, you're beautiful, you're an incredible artist, you're a chef, you've raised 6 or 7 children, and all your children are successful. Your father was I think about Luana. Your father was a Buffalo soldier. I mean, like, wait, her father. Luana has a picture of her father standing next to General Westmoreland. I'm like, oh my God. You know, you were next to Westmoreland. If you know about the Vietnam War, you're like, wow, as a black man. But he's not going to live forever. So we don't have time. So what I'm going to do today is show you how all of us have a once upon a time machine. We're wearing it. It's in our house somewhere. If you don't have one, you know of someone who does. So what today's show is going to talk about is we're going to talk about the time stone. The time stone that comes from the Marvel cinematic universe, the time stone. And so when those of you saw the movie, I mean, you know, the movie, it was like what, the second most grossing, highest grossing movie, well, the second and third most highest grossing movies in the world, billions of dollars. So this is the movie, the Avengers, the Infinity Stones, and we talked about there's 6 of them, and we talked about a couple other with that. But today we're going to talk about the time stone. Today we're going to talk about the time stone. And what was interesting when Charlie and I started thinking about this, there's so many different ways that you can take this on we could talk about quantum physics and get real deep and get real philosophical about it. And this show would go on for hours and hours and hours. Because think about it, it says the time stone grants complete control over time. One could stop, rewind, speed up time, and observe the visions of the future. That's what the time stone is. That's what the time stone could do. Thanos, who was the character in the movie, the villain, obviously, could do that once he had the time stone. So, and Charlie brought up a good point. Well, we can talk about this, but now let's talk about it in terms of gemmology, because that's what this show is about. How can we take a gemstone or movie or song or something about a gemstone and relate it to not only real gemmological properties, but also how we saw it in history, art, science, history, magic. So all the time stone is a green stone. It's on the thumb. The green, whatever, your left-handed, right-handed, your gauntlet, your infinity gauntlet would be on for me, it would be on my right hand, and the time stone would be on my thumb. And it's a green stone. It's a green stone. That's what the time stone is. The color is a green. So in gemmology, there are 32 different types of green gemstones. You got green sapphires, you got green diamonds, you got whole bunch of green gemstones, and all of them, each one of them has their own metaphysical properties, not just because of what they're made out of, but because they are green. That's what this whole book is about. Book of Stone. This whole book is about different, I got a whole bunch of books like this, but these books that talk about the metaphysical characteristics and power of gemstones, each type of gemstone has its own powers. So what if we took those powers that the time stone has in the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and apply them to what we already believe for thousands of years about gemstones? For instance, this is an emerald. This is the beautiful Colombian emerald. And we talked about what the emerald's made out of. We talked about the hardness. We talked about it being one of the cardinal stones. But an emerald also, I shouldn't say but, and also an emerald on a metaphysical level is considered a stone of prosperity, a stone of courage, a stone of love. So when you give that emerald to the person that you love, because they're too expensive just to give to somebody you don't like, you're giving them this emerald, this gemstone, because you believe in its beauty. You believe in what it does. Imagine giving to someone an emerald like this and telling them, thank you for your courage of being my wife, my husband, my partner. Thank you for your love. You give it to them with that. You believe in the story, and that person would believe in the story and the passion that you gave the gemstone with to them. Here's Oregon sunstone, a sunstone. Look at the beauty of this. It's a stone of personal power and freedom. That's what that gemstone means on a metaphysical mean. So therefore, if you hear the sound of my voice and watch this show, and you didn't know what an Oregon sunstone even looked like, and you said, wow, that's really pretty. You go to a store to buy this stone, you're buying this stone, one, because it's pretty, but also you like the fact that this is a gemstone of personal power, of personal freedom. Maybe you're getting a divorce. Maybe you got the divorce. The divorce has finalized, finally. And you wanted something to symbolize that. So you bought a Oregon sunstone because you believed in the story. You believed. Malachite, enlightened leadership, creativity. A stone of creativity. Imagine getting this stone and you're beginning to start a business. And in this business, you gave someone the stone because you're going to be a leader. You got a new promotion. You got the stone. And this person told you that this stone is a stone of enlightened leadership, a stone of creativity, and you believe in it. You believe in that stone. So what I want you to do is think about, while we take a break, think about your dreams for this year. Think about where you want to go. And then think about what gemstone you like. What gemstone relates to your birthday, your birth month, whatever, your characteristics. And when we come back, I'm going to bring on our resident expert of mythology and put it together, the MCU universe with the Gemmological universe. We're going to talk about it when we get back from the other side. Exactly. Hey, Charlie, how are you, man?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Semper Fi. So, Charlie and I talked about this, and so Charlie, tell the audience about and I know the time stone is huge. Charlie, when I first talked about it, I said, Charlie, what are we going to do next? Charlie said, we're going to do the time stone. Once I finally got my head that we were going to do the time stone, not the mind stone, I kept saying that. And then I said, well, okay, what about the time stone? And Charlie sends me like this dossier on the time stone. And I'm like, oh my God, how are we going to put this together? What are we going to do with this? So Charlie, in a short amount of time, tell us an overview of what the time stone was in the MCU.
So the time stone was one of the 6 original soul gems in the Marvel universe, and it is the one that represents the aspect of time in the universe. It grants the wielder of it complete control over the flow of time, how fast, how slow, looking into the future, and to an extent traveling. It's not powerful enough to affect things on a large scale by itself, but if you add the reality stone and the space stone, and with the other ones, those are the ones that enhance its power, and you would be able to actually exist at every point of time, everywhere. So you would be omnipresent, basically, throughout all of existence. That's like the capability of what it can do. It can manipulate to an extent. Something like in the movie, you see Doctor Strange uses it on an apple. It's the first thing he does. He decays the apple and he brings it back. And he also uses it to bring the pages back that were stolen out of the one manuscript. But it cannot recreate that matter. It can only represent what used to be there. And that's why when he's distracted, the pages disappear and they fly off, because those items were not really there. They were just a temporary copy of it. Um, and the other side of that would be like, so when Thanos uses it to turn back time to reverse the destruction of the Mind Stone in Vision's head, that's why that stone remained there, is because he was reforming the actual stone as opposed to a representation of it somewhere else.
Okay. Okay. And now our job is to take everything you said and let's and let's put it together in a way where when we see it on the movies, obviously the movie made over $1 billion. It was very entertaining. But how can we use that? When you told me this, I started thinking, how can we use those concepts, that power, in a way that people can actually do on a day-to-day basis? And so I started looking at, Barbara, bring up my screen for me, please. When I started looking at the different types of green gemstones, and I started looking at what we can do with it. So let me give here's I started thinking, all right, we don't actually have a time stone in the sense of that we can go back and forth, just move throughout time, whatever. We don't have access to that. Again, durability. We don't have that. I can't see myself. I can't predict whatever. But in a once upon a time machine, if we had a time machine that can only go backwards, we can't change anything, but to go backwards to look at what our story is. So I'll give you an example. This is let's say someone gave you a peridot. Let's say this is a time stone. And this time stone just happens to be a peridot. People who are born in August, this is their birthstone. And this stone is a stone of increase. Now, emerald is prosperity, but a peridot is increased prosperity and a stone of well-being. That's what this stone is. So, when someone gave you this gemstone, right, to wear because of that, how would you, now that you understand that this is that your stone in your hand in that box that you received is not only a peridot, it's a time stone, and these are the characteristics that this time stone, this peridot time stone has. How would you use this power if you were given this? What moment in your life would you be reminded of the characteristics that this peridot has?
That's a good question. I think the stone serves as kind of an abstract of taking a mental journey throughout your life, right? So like it allows you to look back on those periods of time where this would have been effective, or this would have been what you used to fix something that was going on back then, or a representation of you fixing it yourself. For me, I guess I would say, like, especially with the well-being and the prosperity aspect of it, I would, that would be very telling of my time. When I got into recovery, I was a terrible alcoholic for a long time, and my life was going nowhere at the time, and I eventually got to the point where I had to do something about it, and that would, with the prosperity of my life getting better as I move forward after that, and the well-being, especially of not just my physical body, but my mental, my mind, my my spirit, if you want to call it that, all of that was affected extremely positively during that period of time. So if I was to take a trip back with the time stone, that would happen to be it. That would probably be where I would land.
Thank you for sharing that too. Because as our audience know, my mom, I'm not an alcoholic, but my mom was. So basically, I'm a childhood alcoholic. So those of you who have had parents or relatives that are alcoholic, that that you, it's the same thing. You may not be an alcoholic, but you take on some of the traits, you take on some of the characteristics, and you understand it. And it's the same thing with gemstones. You can believe and understand the characteristics that this gemstone supposedly have, that you imbued this gemstone with. If you pick up a peridot, you're not going to just automatically say, "Oh, well, this is a stone of increased prosperity in time." Someone told you that story, and what I'm saying is, just like a time, we all have time stones. We have access to time stones. That if you have a gemstone that you're not only just someone giving it to you, but you're drawn to, I would ask the person, or ask you to literally look at what that gemstone is. Why are you drawn to that gemstone, and see if the characteristics of that gemstone either takes you back, again, time machine, once upon a time, or remind you of a place that you were before. So now that peridot is your time stone, because every time you look at it, you'll think about not only where you were in the past, but where you are now, how far you are now. And Charlie told me, probably, and I'm going to just put a shout out, Charlie, 8 years, right, Charlie? 8 years.
Yeah.
8 years. And those of you who understand, who struggle with different things in their life, 8 years. And so I'm proud. Let's give it up for Charlie. 8 years. I know Charlie's blushing like, oh my, he'll beat me up later on. But 8 years. 8 years of being clean and sober and changing his life. That's what we have to do. And this is the crux of what I talk about on this show, discovering the value of your story. The only difference between us and movies like the Avengers is we don't have a time. We don't have a sound thing. We don't have a sound playing on the back of a sounds. What do you call it? Whatever. You don't have a voiceover. You don't have a music playing. Dun dun dun. When Charlie went to recovery, when Charlie 8 years later, there's not going to have this sound, this orchestra playing every time Charlie. Except when Charlie and I get together, I hear it. It goes dun 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 dun, and then Charlie walks out the house.
Yeah, you gotta have some theme music, You
got exactly theme music. Theme music. You gotta have theme music, but that's the difference. There is no difference other than the time. So a gemstone, a peridot, has been around for millions of years. You and I won't be, but the value of your story can really only be discovered if you go back. If you go back, here's another one. You gotta believe. You gotta believe in it. That's how you got there. You began to believe in your story. Let's do another one. Here's jade. Now, jade, and Charlie knows about jade. I was saving this for Charlie, because Charlie, he works with jade snuff bottles. See, he knows. So this is jade. Jade is considered a stone of health, a stone of abundance. But if you understand what jade is, the jade for people is for Asian, in the Asian community, in the Asian world, jade is the stone of heaven. I literally have a book. This is the book written by Adrian Levi and Kathy Scott Clark. It's called The Stone of Heaven. This whole book is about that one gemstone. That gemstone that gives a gemstone of health and abundance. So what if you were given that stone? And I teach a lot of kids in Asia, and a lot of the my students, when they're for 10, 11 years old, they're given, sometimes younger, they're given a piece of jade jewelry because of what it represents. So how could you, Charlie, how do you think that a stone like this can, not just you, but how do you think a stone like this can empower people? You have a brand new newborn daughter. You have a beautiful newborn daughter. If you gave your baby girl a jade piece of jade earrings or a little jade bracelet using those characteristics that is imbued supposedly in jade, you believe it, how would you give that gemstone to your daughter?
That's a good question. I think that given what it represents and its properties, I would say that would be something I would give to her to ward off sicknesses, or to to be to learn, and to grow healthy and quickly. It's hard to really say, I guess.
No, I understand. And thank you, because it's a process. It's a process. Even in the movies, when you are not just the Avengers, the Infinity Stone movies, but any movie that talks about a time machine, the real question is, which is the original question, is to be or not to be, or to live or not to be. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with that time? What have you done? And what Gemstones can do is literally be a marker. Be a marker in your life, not only just where you've been, where you are now. What does that represent in your life? And that's where the time machine aspect comes in. Gemstone, and because a gemstone has what we don't have, which is durability, you know that this peridot will exist, not only exist before you came, existed while that whole time you're here, and it will exist long after you. And yet that the for thousands of years, people have believed that this is a stone of health, that this is a stone of abundance, that this is a stone of heaven. Wow. And how we can use, when you receive that jade in your life, or you have someone in your life that represents those characteristics, that person that cared for you when you weren't in good health, that person who fed you and gave you love and support, abundance, that jade is your time machine. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, and I think it also the way that you're putting it, with when you talk about, especially kind of how the time stone properties are reflected through the idea of the properties of these other various stones. I think that actually serves as a really good reminder to people to remember those points of time where that might have been something you needed, or you actually exercised, and to use those checkpoints in your life to really reflect on what you've been through and where you are and how you got there, because we all have these tendencies to ignore the good parts of our lives and to focus only on the bad ones, right? Like I think Rounder is one of my favorite movies. One of the lines is, every most poker players can't remember big pots they won, but they will always remember the time that they lost big.
Good point. I remember I saw that movie. Good point. Good point. Yes. Yes.
And that's kind of what we do. And it's important to have these vehicles of memory, or checkpoints that we can plant flags in our own timeline, and remind ourselves that we are capable of whatever it is that we're trying to focus our lives on moving forward. I think that, in the respect of really understanding the value of the life that you lived in, your story, as you so eloquently put it, that really is a vehicle for positive change and for inspiration. Whereas a lot of times, I think we really focus on what we're not doing right, and what we punishing ourselves for this or whatever. The idea of working out because you love yourself, not because you hate the way you look.
And remembering as and thank you for that. Remembering, let me add to that, not only just what you're saying, remembering from a point of view of where you were, but using that to empower you for the future. The time stone our time stones, what we're wearing, can't take us into the future on a physical level, but it can lead us towards the future, because we remember those wins. We remember the times that we overcame. We talked about in my show many times the 7 elements of storytelling: sound, the passion, hero, the antagonist, the obstacle, the thing that you had to overcome, and then awareness, becoming aware of where you've been once upon a time. Once upon a time, you were not where you were. And you can go either way. Once upon a time, you had money, you had a beautiful house, you had all these things, and now you don't. So if you had a time stone, let's say when you had that ring, that necklace, that earring, and that earring represented a moment in your life, that gemstone represented a moment in your life when you had. So the question is not so much to lament, oh man, I don't have it anymore, but to remind yourself, what were you doing when you got it? What were you doing in your life? Where were you mentally, spiritually when you were wearing that, when you were so proud to put that on your hand? And now it's still on your hand, going back to, so altered has his mind become. Go back. Use that gemstone to go back to remember when you wore that gemstone and someone told you that this is the stone of heaven. I mean, it changes your whole feeling about a ring when you know that this is the stone of heaven. Yeah. And I was there. I was this. My husband, my wife, my partner gave me this stone. You believe. You believe in that. And that's the power of it. That's the power. And I can say it with so much conviction because these attributes that's all in all these gemstones are from thousands of years. This is not Barry Mixon saying it. This is Cleopatra saying it. This is the damn near the caveman who had pearls and coral and just said ungo, whatever. Which meant once upon a time. Just he believed. He believed. He's grown. Here's imagine starting a business. No, forget it. We're guys. Let's be honest. We're guys. Charlie's younger than me, okay? By a lot, all right? And I'm 63. I would love to receive a stone of strength and vitality. Yeah. It's like, okay, Barry, here's a stone. This is a chrome tourmaline. Okay, this is pretty. This is real nice. I like this. It is the stone of strength and vitality. And not only does it give you that power, you believe it gives you that power now, but you can go back to, when I played football or when I played on a Marine Corps racquetball team and was beating everybody. Now I probably couldn't beat anybody, but back in the day, yeah. So tell me a moment in your life that you can go back where you exhibited where there was strength or you just felt the vitality of you. Of course, you're a Marine, so there's lots of stories. So just pick one.
Well, I would say, that I would venture to guess that there would be something that you would say too. And it's like, I would imagine that this should have been what my Eagle Globe and Anchor was made out of when I was handed it on the graduation parade deck of MCRD San Diego. There's no more point in time where you feel stronger and more alive than when you're graduating Marine Corps boot camp, okay? Because you just spent 3 months in hell and now you've actually earned what you went there to get. And that's such an empowering moment at least for me. It was a majorly empowering moment. And, only offset by the fact that the moment I was standing on those yellow footprints, I was like, what am I doing? What did I do? And, 3 months later to be able to walk off the parade deck in uniform, have that Eagle Globe and Anchor on the cover and, finally make it. There's no greater, I think, time in my life where I felt stronger or more alive than that.
Exactly. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what gemstones can mean to us. It's more than just something pretty, guys. I'm talking that just to you, Charlie, to the audience. It's more than just something pretty. It's more. It has to be. There's lots of pretty things in the world. There's lots of pretty things in the world. But how many things in the world can you name that transcends culture, transcends race, transcends civilization, transcends gender? That there are literally millions of people all over the world that believe in chrome tourmaline. Chrome tourmaline. Just because it has a hint of chromium in it, it's somehow imbued with this. It's a stone of strength and vitality. And like you said, just like you and I are Marines, we believe in that thing called the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor. When you see it, it's a representation, no matter where we are. You've gone through your challenges. When I was homeless, the thing that kept me going was remembering that I'm a Marine. I'm a Marine. I can get through this. So the same time machine that we do in our minds, some of us, we can do that with gemstones. That gemstone can become our time stone. And really, Charlie, thank you for that. I never thought about, wow, a chrome tourmaline being represented in the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor. That would be so cool. That would, I mean, just to have that, and it fits every gemstone because every gemstone has its own characteristic. So here is chrome tourmaline that we believe in that story, and here's green tourmaline. This is a stone of self-healing. How would you use this stone in self-healing? Well, now you understand what this stone is. How would this gemstone relate to you? If you had this, let's say you had a nice ring with this gemstone on it, and it's a stone of self-healing. How would that resonate with you?
I think not so much physically as it would be just putting myself back together in a a mental and spiritual sense, like again in recovery. You have to do a lot of work on yourself in those, to get past where you are and to undo years of bad habits and bad decisions and things like that. And a lot of the struggle is just being accepting of the fact that you can heal and, believing that it's possible. Getting over that hurdle, at least for me, was probably the biggest one because I just thought I was done. And having something to help represent that change, having something to help you believe that it's really possible to progress from where you are, it's that would be a majorly beneficial thing to have, regardless of whether that was actually doing anything to you on a physical or a metaphysical level. It just the fact that you have something there to represent it, you can always see it. My mother gave me a coin when I got to rehab. I carried that coin every single day of the week. It's in my pocket all the time. I never leave home without it. And it's not for any other reason than I have a physical reminder all the time of where I've been and where I am not anymore. And I mean, I had 42 cents in my bank account at that point. Okay. I was broke. I was that close to being in serious medical trouble. And that was the turning point for me. So there wasn't a lower point in my life. To have a representation of the day that I got that coin represents where I was then versus any other point in my life. It's always going to be, I'm better now than I was then. And for me, that's hugely helpful because I am so focused on all the wrong things most of the time. I just, I require something to remind me to pull my head out of out of my butt sometimes and smell the roses instead of my own stuff.
Yes, absolutely. And that, I mean, even as I was hearing you talk, and I'm looking at, and I love this stone. I love this stone. I love the cut of this stone. I love just the way it was put together. Look at it. The imagine wearing something like this, where in the center you have this center of power expanding out. And then you go to, as a man thinketh, and he talks about years later, we see this youth as a full-grown man, a master of certain forces of the mind, which he wields with worldwide influence and almost unequal power. This is the same guy that was, homeless, had nothing, couldn't think about anything, had 42 cents in his pocket, and now, because of his self-healing, because of the things he had to do to move forward, he has something to remind himself of when he was. So again, we can talk about this forever. We did this whole thing without talking about quantum physics. bonus. So
It
just
was
go
hard.
ahead and give me a minute. Give me a minute of what now. What was your takeaway from this? Understanding where you were with gemstones and now understanding in a different way. What's your takeaway from today?
My takeaway really is that it's important to have things to remind you of the achievements and the checkpoints. Like bad and good. I but those representations should be something positive. Like they should represent a positive change or an ability to do that. You don't want a reminder of how bad things are going to be, because that would just be really depressing. But it's interesting to me that all of these different stones, they across cultures, across continents, across the world, people never met each other, like completely separated, and they all have these beliefs centered around these types of items. It's not really surprising that they would find them beautiful, because they are amazingly beautiful. But when you start seeing the similarities and even those metaphysical properties that they place on these things across cultures, it's really kind of incredible. It makes you wonder, how is it that that culture and this culture both think this stone was a healing stone?
Mm-hmm.
How is that? Why you look at a rock, you don't say to yourself, wow, I feel like I'm so alive right now because that rock is in my hand. It's just it's interesting to me how similar beliefs to that degree over years, over continents, over miles, can manifest themselves in very different people in very different places of the world.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the same here. Say exactly, and that's why I do. That's what this show is about. Because to me, I find myself constantly amazed that the things that we see every day, gemstones have existed for thousands of years. One, why did they exist like this? And you got to believe. It's got to be about belief. And if we can take that same belief, if we can write books and books and books about this same thing in different ways, then that same power that we have to mentally see that is exactly what As a Man Thinketh was talking about, is exactly what we can do, the decision that we can make once we make the decision to discover the value of our own stories. So again, Charlie, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. I'm gonna have to start bringing Charlie on more, because now we start to get Charlie and I have really deep conversations. So now we just have to package it in a way where other people be like, are they on drugs, or like what's going on? So thank
Hey,
you,
that's
Charlie.
okay.
Appreciate it. Yeah, right. Okay, there you go. So thank you so much, and to all of you, to my friends, family, um, it's so important to me to just get people to understand the beauty of who they are. Every time I hear about someone dying, and they don't have to be famous, just someone dying, and the first thing I always ask is, how old they? How old were they? How old were they? What did they do with that time? I have gemstones in my possessions that are literally, because they're gemstones, that are millions of years old, and what those gemstones represent is the same throughout time. We're different because no, we are rare because there's only one Barry Mixon. We are, well, I like to think of myself as beautiful, but there are people who are beautiful. But the key thing is, none of us have the durability. None of us are going to live forever. I won't be here saying, hi, I'm 500 years old, I'm a jump. No, it's not going to happen. So what can you do, or what have you done with your time? What do you want to do with your time, and how you can use gemstones as a time machine to bring you back to that moment, that day when you felt whatever that attribute is: strength, vitality, protection, self awareness. So that's your homework assignment for this week, to take time to think. Just take some moment to think about where you are and where you were. Where you are and where you were, and then figure out what you can take from that experience and bring it to where you want to be. So I hope you enjoyed today. My name is Barry B. Mixon. I am a Gemmological Storyteller, and I wish to my last breath that everyone on the planet, 8 billion people, realize how special they are and take the time to discover the value of their individual stories. So until next week, au revoir, atatella, voila.